And it's welcome to another Dr. Tech show with myself, Pauline Roche, and Sweyn Hunter, an occasional guest guiding you through the world of online communications in a show where we talk tech, the brainchild of the late John Popham. And I'm delighted to say that we've heard about a tribute to John Popham, which is going to be on the 27th of December, organised by Better Culture, which was a group that John worked with regularly. And this is a farewell celebration event in his honour, and they've chosen a Christmas date because John was keenly aware of the crushing loneliness some people can feel over the holiday period, and they feel he would have approved of their timing. So I think myself and Sweyn are very pleased to see this event happening, and as we were talking about it earlier before the show started, there's a lovely picture of John looking straight at you, like most good pictures are of people. And apparently they're promising, talking about sport and cricket and all kinds of good things. Is that right, Sweyn?
That's right. Yes, I'm looking forward to that. I was trying to subscribe there as I spoke, but actually I shouldn't have done anything so stupid. We actually have our guest waiting to join us. So,
okay.
Yes, the Better Culture thing, definitely going to try and get along to that for at least part of it. So okay. We'll say hello to our guest shortly.
Excellent.
I'll stop sharing because Zoom is doing something weird, which means I can't see anybody. So hello, Caspar. If you can hear us, we are actually now live. So okay. Welcome to the show.
Hi there.
And and I'll just hand back to Pauline now.
Okay, brilliant.
Hi, Caspar. You're very welcome. We're going through the kind of early part of the show, so please join in, and then we'll have more time for you. Thanks very much. So we've just been talking about an event as a tribute to John Popham, who was the guy who started this show back in May, and it's a Better Culture event, and we think it'll be fun and heartwarming for people who like John and like the things that he used to do about the internet. So that's good to hear. So back to our usual programming, and we talk about the weather as a good introduction. So we ask people how the weather is where they are, and I've already been out for a walk this morning, even though the park across from our house seemed like half of it had disappeared with fog this morning. So it was a kind of in faith. We went out in good faith, and we were rewarded with a nice walk around the park. So it was all right. It wasn't raining then anyway. And Sweyn, how's the weather where you are?
In Orkney, the weather is pretty poor, to be honest. It's dark and it's wet and it's not too windy, so there is that silver lining.
That's good.
Yeah, typical December.
And Caspar, how are you, and where's the weather where you are?
Well, I was okay till I looked out the window. It's reminiscent of kind of, Victorian London fog, basically. It was this morning anyway at sort of 6 o'clock. Oh. It's kind of clearing a little bit, but, but yesterday was outstandingly lovely. So, a bit cold, but nice and clear. And so was Saturday.
Yeah, the more I go out every morning, the more I realise the changes in weather from day to day. And my face today felt cold in a way it hadn't previously.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a few, as we call it, in an awareness slot. So we talk about kind of what special days we're kind of marking around this time of year, and we've got a few that we've come across for this time of year, and the first one we've got is UK Charity Week. And this is a new one on me. I hadn't heard of it before, but apparently it was established in 2009, and it was founded by Lee B. Raymond, and is designed to give the people of the United Kingdom an opportunity to place awareness and fundraising for charities high on the national agenda at a time of year when people are statistically at their most giving. So hopefully we'll see lots of coverage of that this week. The hashtag is UK Charity Week. So anyone interested in that can follow along and see what's happening on that. Obviously, there's far fewer face-to-face events now than there would have been in previous years, but I think they're still aiming to do some fundraising online and stuff like that. Another thing we're celebrating around this time is Human Rights Day on the 10th of December. And this was the day the UN General Assembly adopted in 1948 the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which proclaims the inalienable rights which everyone is entitled to as a human being, and available in more than 500 languages, is the most translated document in the world. And in 2020, the theme is Recover Better, Stand Up for Human Rights, obviously relating to the COVID-19 pandemic and focusing on the need to build back better by ensuring human rights are central to recovery efforts. We will reach our common goal, global goals, only if we are able to create equal opportunities for all, address the failures exposed and exploited by COVID-19, and apply human rights standards to tackle entrenched, systematic and intergenerational inequalities, exclusion and discrimination. So the 10th of December is an opportunity to reaffirm the importance of human rights in rebuilding the world we want, the need for global solidarity, as well as our interconnectedness and shared humanity. And then the last one was one I came across, I think, on an American website. So it's more an American celebration, but I think it's apt for the kind of program that we are. And it's National App Day. And this was created in 2017, so quite recent, to celebrate the importance of apps as they change our collective culture by organically promoting creativity and innovation. And the background to this is a bit about apps appearing when our mobile devices incorporated smart technologies, and as they increased processing chips and internet connectivity and touchscreens, so more apps became available. They say that apps accelerated in growth with the advent of Apple's iPhone in 2007, and in 2008 Apple introduced OS 2.0, which included approximately 500 apps and allowed third-party app generation. There are now over 3 million apps on both the Apple and Android platforms, offering a plethora of options for business, productivity, entertainment, organization, security, news, and so much more. And programmers are obviously introducing more all the time. So yeah, that's an interesting one. National App Day. I think they're asking people what their favorite app is. I think that would be difficult for us to identify at the moment. Sweyn, could you want to make a pass at your favorite app?
Oh my goodness. Probably the one I can't remember the name of. No, Periscope? No.
What does it do?
The Twitter video streaming app.
Yeah, Periscope.
Yeah, Periscope. I think that's my favorite, although I don't use it so much.
Yeah, I used to use that. Not so much on it now either. Caspar, have you got a favorite app?
Not so much a favorite app, but the one I've been most impressed with recently, and I just need to double check what it's called. It's like a virtual reality app, and I came across this via Leonard Cheshire, who are a disability charity, and they developed these like cardboard glasses, and you kind of stick your phone onto it, but you can kind of typically I can't find it. It will be a cardboard VR, and basically you can kind of and considering even with an old phone, you can do things like wander around the tundra, play with a penguin and all this kind of stuff, but actually it's pretty, for something that is pretty low tech, it is very good.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, and I was very surprised with that. Yeah, and
I think in favour of low tech solutions.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The funny thing was, the actual glasses didn't come with any instructions. So, like a kid who enjoys the wrapping more than the actual present, it probably took me about an hour to like put this thing together, because it literally was this kind of case, a rubber band, and you had to work out where you put. But once you'd got it all going, it's pretty good. And I think the idea is also for for it to be simple to use, because I think it's been, I'm not developed for, but basically has been adopted for people that have restricted use of hands, etc. May need a bit of an assistance. They need something they can kind of immerse themselves within, and just see something different, and it was brilliant.
Yeah. Okay, well, Caspar, you've already jumped into the kind of item that we have guests on for the show, but let me give our readers and listeners a bit of an introduction to you, if you don't mind. Okay. And as we usually do, I've been to your LinkedIn and I've been to the website and picked up a few bits of information about you from there. So Caspar established ClearCommunityWeb, his business, his organization, to help tackle the digital divide in Lambeth, Croydon and Southwark and other parts of South London, I think. He has many years' experience managing digital operations, projects and web development. And the Clear Community Web runs a series of workshop classes and one-to-one events to extend skills, make people safe, and solve problems with laptops, tablets, and mobile phones, and focus on helping residents be better informed and to make better decisions. They run the Digital Lounge at the Upper Norwood Library Hub and work alongside Leonard Cheshire and AbilityNet in the local area. They also enable community groups and local nonprofits by advising and delivering web projects, Salesforce, CRM, and marketing, as well as digital strategy planning. Caspar is an experienced project manager and web developer and has worked within the industry since 1998, both client and agency side, as well as running his own business. He's a keen supporter of people and relishes in helping local residents overcome what often feels like adversity with tech talent challenges, and believes digital should be accessible to all. So Caspar, you are a perfect guest for this program, which aims to help people get online, especially since lockdown started. So you're very welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
So is there anything you like to add to your introduction, or anything that we might have, you'd like to emphasize about the things that you do?
Well, I think the emphasis for me really, it's about the people behind it, and what we really try to do is it's trying to break things down to being as simple and as not simple but clear as they can be, not to dazzle people with like words necessarily, and to have a very hands-on approach, because one of the things that I noticed really is the barriers around confidence a lot of the time. And confidence, it could be, manifest itself in a variety of different ways. It's the confidence to have a go. It's the confidence to, be comfortable with actually not knowing everything. And that's, in pretty much every class that I do, when I pretty much open the gambit of, there's no point in trying to know everything. You're not going to, and actually be comfortable with kind of nosing your way through a situation. And one of the things that I found, particularly trying to kind of teach concepts, ideas, and how-tos to people that, this is a new language to them. What we found is the way we learn now is very different. We kind of come to kind of new subjects in a quite an exploratory way without realizing it. So a good example is, so for example, a mobile phone, the on button might be at the top, right, or on the left-hand side or the right-hand side. Now, I could probably give either, all three of us a phone. I could say, touch the on button, and quite, you would feel your way around. Technology is quite tactile as well. But if you say to someone that is a little bit nervous, they're kind of, not sure, they don't want to break it, and you kind of say, top right, and you're as specific as that, but it's actually over to the side, that will throw someone. And you realize actually that we've kind of, we've changed the way we kind of learn stuff. But if you're used to very clear and explicit instructions, that can be quite a challenge as well. So it's kind of, helping people feel comfortable that actually, things will change as well. And that's another area. People are my experience is that, it's changing so much. If I learn this, is it going to change again? So it's kind of, just, helping people kind of be, settled with that really. And at that point, then you can start hopefully starting to see wood for the trees.
Yeah, sure. So Caspar, how did you get involved in all this? What did your early career look like, and how did it get you to here?
Well, interestingly enough, I back in the kind of mid-90s, I got really interested with just the advent of the internet, if you like. I kind of really saw it as a force of kind of social change, the concept that you could collaborate, that you could kind of, interact and work with people around the globe, and that kind of opening up. And I kind of, was developing websites. I kind of ran my own business at that stage. I'd come out of the music industry, so I was kind of a bit disruptive, to be honest. It was all about kind of, how technology could force a new new way of doing things. I was very much like that. I then, started to work for a few agencies, some larger companies, and all of a sudden 10, 15 years go by, and it's all been hijacked by things like social media, marketing, advertising, and suddenly realized that the thing that I had got into, or in this force of social change, that wasn't all good. But also it had been hijacked and become complicated. Something that was supposed to enable had suddenly closed doors, and also was isolating people, which seemed to be completely counter what it was all about. So I kind of thought, I need to try and fix what I'd broken, basically. And so it's quite interesting, because I kind of feel now that I'm kind of back where I started, if you like. But I was a carer for a kind of a family member who was, their kind of long-term, their wife was recently deceased, and suddenly seeing a kind of a senior person having to deal with life, basically, in a kind of a digital way. And just realized that actually this could be a way of giving back. This was actually where the work was for me, actually, rather than the high tech. I'm very kind of low tech, if you like.
Excellent, because how we came to hear about you is through Paul Clayton, who was has been a guest on the show previously. So are you doing similar things to Paul? You work together, you have similar values, it sounds like, anyway.
I mean, yeah, Paul, basically, I think geographically, he's just right next door. And we kind of came across each other, and I think we almost see each other as kind of a supportive network, really. I do some support and he does some support. But we're actually just quite often, it's actually quite nice having I guess a peer, but someone who's actually, we're both, slightly different parts of the same curve, but we, I think the same motivation, which is unusual, which is, and quite reassuring, if you like.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, he's a great guy.
Yeah. So tell us a bit about the kind of things that you've were doing before COVID, and then what's been happening since.
Okay, so I guess it can be split into kind of three things. We were running a fairly successful class that we call Digital Skills for Seniors, and it was at the Upper Nord Library. And the idea originally was that it was a kind of a drop-in for people that had some kind of questions. And over about an 18-month period, we kind of crafted this into something that loosely followed a series of either tasks or kind of things that were of interest to people. We would talk, so we were doing things like planning journeys on TfL website. One of the things, the idea was for it to be really practical, and not not like an accredited IT course or anything like that. So before COVID, and this is one of my not regrets, because I would love to pull this one off, but basically we had this kind of 8-week program where basically I was going to introduce a variety of different subjects to get to the end goal. And the end goal actually was, I've got an insurance document, or I've got a contract, I've got a housing thing, it's come into my email with something called a PDF. It's 20 pages. I need to get that onto a USB stick to print it out, because I need to print it and I don't have a printer. So the whole thing was to kind of, and the kind of the look and the fears, I'd kind of, so who's got a USB stick? But the idea was to kind of really break things down. And then it was a way of kind of just joining everything up. And then COVID hit. So I kind of, there's part of me that is like, maybe they weren't quite ready for it. They're kind of, there's a bit of a conspiracy theory going. But no, and I guess it was all about kind of looking at, what's useful. And also to be kind of self-reliant. So one of the things about the USB stick concept was actually, they would actually have to put the file onto their stick. They would actually have to go and find a librarian, ask the librarian to print that file out. So within that, what you're kind of teaching is you need to be organized. You need to be able to name a file. You need to know what that file is, the importance of it. You need to be able to put it onto a stick, and also then actually ask someone for help. And all of those things I think are quite useful, because I think technology can be isolating. You feel that you're the one that feels a bit silly. You're the one that doesn't know and everyone else knows all of these things. Why don't I? So this exercise was about to try and, kind of break that down a little bit for people. Now, that class, we had on average between like 8 and 10 people that turn up on a regular basis. And, we were, we'd also kind of introduce an element of kind of local, not so much, well, kind of what's going on in the local area. So a little bit like your links earlier on, but we'd kind of, help people get to know their local areas via things like social media or Google searches or all kind of stuff like that. When COVID hit, we kind of offered to start running the class on Zoom, and we spent a lot of time trying to encourage people, say, look, this is what we're going to do. And initially there was kind of a little reservation, and we paused for about 2 weeks just to try and measure measure the room or get the temperature, and we just kind of plumbed for it, and literally 9 people turned up to that first one. It's like, hold on, you're saying how complicated it all is, but actually with a little bit of pushing and a little bit of guidance, we got people on. And we've kind of renamed the class now. It's called Digital Awareness for older people, because we felt the awareness was reached a broader kind of range of people, but a range of topics. So now on average, I think last week we had 19 people attend. Wow. And since the summer, it's been that amount of people. We've geographically grown.
Do you think that the increase in numbers is, well, what do you think the reason is? Is it because people are more keen than ever to become digitally aware, or is it some other thing that's going on, do you think?
I mean, I've pound the streets in terms of just trying to get people kind of interested and stuff, but now it's gained a bit of traction, and I work with other organizations, community groups, and so what happens is if I've helped someone over there, then they'll invite a friend. So it's kind of on that level. There's 2 of us that run the class. But a key thing was we've really started to introduce mobile phones over the last sort of 6 weeks. And we started off with kind of showing people the test and trace app. But we literally broke, I mean, I don't have it here, but we literally had the little thing that you scan on. So it was like, first of all, it was like, okay, some of you that are now slowly getting out of the house might start to see this poster on shop windows.
And it's not clear what it means, is it? A QR
exactly.
code?
No. This is what it. This is a QR code. And then just basically explaining to them like, well, actually, QR codes can be used for other things, and just really, really kind of like breaking it down. And then we've kind of gone, so that we've actually focused quite a bit on mobile phones the last few weeks, starting off with, asking people to find their own settings to be able to know, number one, what mobile phone they actually have, and number two, what version of the operating system they have. The reason we do this is, the bottom line is, if you have to go into EE, Vodafone shop or whatever, and you've got a problem with your mobile phone, if you can at least go up to that salesperson and say, I've got a problem with my mobile phone, this is what I've got, this is the version of the operating system, I guarantee they'll take you a bit more seriously.
Yes.
Whereas if you walk, it's like, well, I'm not really sure, our phone's playing up a little bit. 2 things will happen. Either they'll try and really upsell something, and all of a sudden you're in some 18-month contract, or they'll try and get you out the door as quickly as possible. So again, it's about confidence. About empowerment is a horrible, I don't like the word empowerment, but it is that kind of that thing.
I think in that case, it's a very useful word. To kind of equalize the power between the very nervous customer and the very savvy sales staff.
And the thing about finding the settings is, so coming back to the point I made earlier on about you can't know everything. So with your phone, you only need to know one thing. If you know where settings are, then you know that that's where you've got a fighting chance of finding, you know, if you need to change or amend something, you've got a fighting chance of finding it there than anywhere else. So you only need to know that. But we've also found that that's a perfect doorway, because the settings cog, if you like, is probably the most universal. That's more similar on Android. It's more similar on an iPhone. Settings in apps such as Zoom, etc. It's all that same cog. So all of a sudden we're, you know, this whole disparate world of lots of different things can all be brought together by this one kind of almost universal icon.
Brilliant.
And then all of a sudden the learning is, well, actually you only need to, you know, there's something called the settings, you know, the chances are it's going to look like a cog, right? Brilliant. But you know that if it doesn't look like a cog, there's going to be something called settings there somewhere.
Yeah.
If you still can't find that, it's probably poorly built. It's nothing to do with you. It's not your problem. You just need to find it, or it's not there.
That sounds really useful to teach people some critical thinking about technology. As we've said before on the show, you know, people say to us all the time, oh, you know about digital. Well, yeah, we know certain things. We don't know everything. And I think the people who claim to know more than they do they're just not helping people. And what age groups are you dealing with then, Caspar?
Okay, so the the digital awareness for older people, I mean, I guess the demographic is from probably around 49 to about 85. So quite broad. I think in terms of the support, it is the older demographic, but I work with a lot of carers, but I also work with adults with disability. So whether that's kind of learning disability, which can be a range from 18 upwards, physical disabilities come through referrals with people like Leonard Cheshire. So it's mainly adults I work with. I have kind of facilitated kind of coding club type things in the past, and like the opportunity for I think that the phrase is intergenerational volunteering. So if there's any way of doing it, but the reality is that kind of find so when I first started doing classes at the library, it was just an open digital inclusion class, which as a name meant absolutely nothing because to anyone. But what we found actually is that demographically, the more kind of technically older people, if you like, were more comfortable asking basic questions in their own peer group, as opposed to when it was mixed up and there was a wider kind of age range, that they just weren't as comfortable asking questions. And and I think that's one of the things we do encourage is that kind of question answering and stuff like that.
Definitely, yeah. So what other ways do people interact with you now, or is Zoom the main way?
Well, so we run the digital awareness class, but we also run this thing called community tech supports, and that is either using Zoom, but we are doing some face-to-face kind of help. So the idea is this is a free to access service, and I believe that as a service, it is potentially as this could sit alongside citizen advice. We're helping people access email accounts, set things up, helping them access services. We've been getting about, I think the last 4 weeks, we've been having like between 10 and 12 referrals a week across those 3 boroughs. And it's things that will, that they contain things like, I need to access an online funeral. I need to be able to bid for new housing, and I'm, you know, I need help accessing the particular website. It's things like that, very specifically helping people do, you know, jump over a little hurdle. We can't, obviously through that service, it's difficult giving kind of ongoing, you know, programs of development for individuals. We'd like to, we could do, but that's not part of the funded service, if you like. And I think in the new year we are looking to try and get into buildings to do classes again. So I've been trying to discuss how we could do a socially distanced class of perhaps 6 students, and there's two programs we want to run. One's called Digital Horizons, which is a kind of an introduction to using how to use a tablet, which is distinct from the internet, but it's also looking at useful things within a tablet. And the other one is called Laptop Self-Care. So it kind of takes the ethos around the empowerment around mobile phones, if you like, but to your own laptop. So the you know, the eligibility criteria is you need to have a laptop and you need to have some questions about it. But the idea will be things like, you know, how to run updates. Do you have an antivirus? Can you check that? Basic file management, and just things like that, really, and just understand.
Brilliant.
And again, knowing what you've got, because, you know, family members are buying stuff. They're giving, you know, the amount of, you know, people that, oh, you know, my son gave me an iPad and actually it's an Amazon Fire tablet or whatever. It's not, you know, and it's just, again, being able to reset and knowing where you are. It's like being on a map. You're orientating yourself on a map. You're wandering new city, or at least if at some point you can say, you know what, this is me now. Now where do I want to go? And I think that's how I do it.
2 questions, really. I mean, you're very locally based in your own local area. So how important do you think that is? And also, if that is an important thing, how would you recommend that people go about starting something similar in their own area?
Well, I think we are very locally based. However, we do have conversations and we can give advice to other organizations. And we've been training charities on how to train volunteers to help people digitally. I think the local aspect really comes into play, and what I thought was critical to success is about trust. And I think again, that sits hand in hand with confidence. And, you know, people don't, you know, and we are also in an environment where trust is being eroded, without going too politically, but, you know, we're on the base, you know, there's just a long stream of things that people are unsure about. And then at the same time being pushed and bullied and cajoled, and now it's all digital. So I think being a kind of a local face can help build that trust. And what we find is that people will come to us for questions they may not go to anywhere else. So, and what we try to encourage people is to, you know, build up that that confidence to ask questions. But you can't, and just going back to the Vodafone shop scenario, there are other mobile phone shops available, but going back to that scenario, people feel intimidated, and I fully understand that, because if you put me in B&Q, I know absolutely nothing about DIY. I hate DIY. I spend all my time avoiding shop stewards who are trying to ask me what I'm doing, because I haven't got a clue.
Yeah.
And I know what that fear and anxiety is all about, you know?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So do you think, Caspar, you can or you want to influence what happens in the ecosystem in your area, you know, so that other people can benefit from projects like yours? Well, for your project as well, obviously.
Well, yes. I mean, I'm on. So that there are some steering groups. Particularly the steering group based in Lambeth and the steering group based in Croydon around how I guess councils can support people at one hand, and there's a project with digital with Leeds Council and Croydon Council where they've been developing a toolkit, and I've been kind of very loosely related to the council part of that project via some work I did with Age UK Croydon. In Lambeth, where there's discussions about trying to create a kind of a network across the borough of a mixture of council operated or funded services, VCS and other community organizations that can kind of collaborate and work together. And I think that kind of brings me to an interesting point that I kind of, for when I set this up, I was quite keen that this was a social enterprise as opposed to a charity or a business. So, it really was kind of there for a social good, but it needed to have a certain commercial drive in order to give it that kind of, if you like, fire, but wasn't wholly beholden to only funding and stuff like that. And I think that's kind of hopefully the thing that can also just pull people together. And I think that what we're finding is actually, particularly the projects in Lambeth, where we've got a broader range of organisations talking about this subject. This is hopefully a real opportunity for that kind of cross-organisation kind of collaboration that doesn't seem to have happened before, or not for a long time anyway.
Excellent. And so have you had any issues, any failures you might call them, or learning things?
Well, it's funny actually, because it depends, on paper, it depends how you measure things, right? So, after 2 years of the digital skills for seniors, digital awareness, they're only just starting to do their homework. So you could say for that first year it was an abject failure. However, they'd turn up. I think that what we realize is that, I think people have thought, particularly, everything's now on Zoom. It's just a matter of giving someone a mobile phone or give it, actually no, it takes people a lot of time. Some people longer than others. Some people will not be able to independently access something. And it might take quite a few sessions to, and you can reframe things and stuff, but it's not a quick fix to a lot of this stuff. And I think there was a huge assumption that it was just a matter of, just buy a few phones, and I've been involved with a few redistribution programs of mobile phones of data, tablets and data and stuff. And, so giving people a smartphone for the first time is a bigger jump for some than others. But then when you're given a donated phone and you've got data but no minutes, that works really well for a tablet. But with a mobile phone, what you realize is that people's expectation of a phone is slightly different. I mean, and I do remember quite a few years ago the jokes with the new smartphones of like, can you actually make a call on that? Because you can do photos, you can stream movies, can you actually do it? And now we're in a situation where, actually giving someone a smartphone, but but you're giving them data, but no minutes. And you kind of think there's been a lot of goodwill to try and donate stuff over the last few months, but the donations haven't always been the right donations. And from where we are, where we're sat in the kind of the storyline of it all, we're dealing with we're helping to build trust. And if they're given stuff and it doesn't quite work, or it doesn't work as expected, or it's actually costing them more money because all of a sudden they're having to do top ups, and it's not all fully thought through.
I think that's been a common kind of feature of many schemes in the past. I mean, we've been drawing some comfort from the current crop of government initiatives on this, like the devices for
.now
in England, connecting Scotland and the Go Northern Ireland one in Northern Ireland as well. That although that one doesn't include devices as such. Do you think that the support in terms of skills and appropriateness that's coming along with those programs are a bit better than it used to be, or do you think there's still a lot to do?
It's difficult because I guess I haven't got the history of previous donation programs.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
But what I would say is, just giving someone a phone is almost not good enough. Like, as in, like, that person is in some respects better off without a phone than just being given.
Unless you're going to support them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think there does at least seem to be an attempt to include that dimension in these current programs, which is probably progress from the kind of scatter devices around the countryside and then run away type model of the past. So but it's interesting. It's interesting that hopefully, as that initial support is given, then people can be kind of handed off to organisations like yours to try and get a bit more lasting and thoroughgoing support.
We'd like to think, and also I think one of a key thing that I've learned throughout this whole process is that the family members are not the best people, in the way that with other forms of care, if you like, actually, a son, daughter, nephew is not always the best person to kind of teach or help, and both parties can get frustrated or impatient. You don't want to be taught either by your nephew, etc., etc. So it's kind of, and I guess that's why when we kind of say we also support carers as much as anything else, part of that is that kind of family dynamic and kind of giving them support to support their kind of family members. And I think that
well, like so many other things, just because you happen to know some of how a phone works for your own purposes doesn't mean to say that you'll be able to effectively support your elderly relatives.
Absolutely.
What they want to do, because what they want to do is likely to be quite different.
Yeah.
So does your program have to be kind of taught by people who have skills, or is there a peer element in it? Where people help each other,
Yeah. So, well, I mean, interestingly enough, so before lockdown, we used to do these events that were kind of, in part, there would be a kind of either some form of presentation or some kind of talk about a subject. So one of the things we did was showing people how to compare products and use filters on a shopping site, and we did Amazon, but we also then looked at energy savings and how to compare stuff. Another version that we did was it was kind of apps that were available for people living with dementia. And we'd always have a representative from Leonard Cheshire who would also be on hand to kind of demonstrate, some assistive technology. Now, part of that was that we would seed the audience, if you like, with some volunteers that would have an iPad. So actually, the idea was you would sit with someone who may not be able to see the big screen, and you'd be able to talk them through the actual presentation there. They could actually hands-on start, as I say, for me, technology can be and should be is tactile. So if you can actually touch something, bang it on your head, you're going to be less fearful of it. But a tablet is a precious object if you don't know what it is. So the idea was that you would get volunteers that would kind of come in and help people and show stuff, and then that would then evolve into a little bit of refreshments and stuff. But then we'd have what we'd call the fixing hour afterwards, which was about continuing with the volunteers and stuff like that, or getting people to kind of do stuff. So where you kind of get I think where you kind of get a lot of kind of peer help really is around things like WhatsApp. So if you can get like 2 or 3 of them, I don't know if you've ever done this yourself, because we've adopted technology and then we just assume certain things work. So for example, if you send a text, you assume that it's arrived at the other end. Okay. But if you actually sit with someone and you send a text to that other phone, and then they see your phone, and then you see that phone, that's magic. It's like you feel like Paul Daniels. Do you know what I mean? But it really is like, but it's, oh well, that's really good.
I'm old enough to remember that the beginning of kind of properly always on email.
Yeah.
And that's compared to the stuff that you had to kind of dial up and consciously send and receive.
Yeah.
And honestly, when trying to organize things with colleagues overseas in the kind of early noughties, late 90s, maybe, that I understand that feeling of absolute magic. They're two time zones different, yet here we are. We don't care. We're chatting.
Yeah.
And yes, it's easy to forget that not everyone has been exposed to that sort of experience, and that's a great thing to hear, actually, that one.
And I think with WhatsApp, then when you see that happening, what you then see is then you're seeing, people are seeing their grandchildren for the first time if you've been locked down, and so on and so forth. And that really is kind of
John Popham had a definite concept in his outlook on this sort of stuff, that what people really want to do, particularly older people, is to have a natter with other people somehow or other. And really what a lot of this digital stuff needs to facilitate is just that. It needs to be transparent to you and I having this conversation as much as it can be achieved. And the desire of everybody on the planet really just to have a chat, just to speak to and interact with other people is the thing.
Well, I mean, I've got a wonderful anecdote with that one, because I mean, many years ago, I was working for an internet agency, and we were commissioned. So I'm talking, 2001, something like that. We were commissioned by something called the Over 50s Network I think it was for Reading and Berkshire. And they had received a bit of funding to develop a kind of interactive forum type thing, so they could stay in contact with each other, but also lobby the council. And they were quite vocal, if you like. They'd raise some money. And what they wanted was for this forum to be kind of set up where they could kind of chat and they could lobby, etc., etc. And within that, they also had this idea that they would have, I can't remember exactly, 6 or 8 kind of computers that they would then seed amongst their group to those that were kind of more isolated and stuff like that. So this is pre-Facebook. So remember the old style forums. And basically kind of 6 months down the line, the forum was set up, and we kind of then went back to kind of see what had happened with these computers and stuff. This is absolutely beautiful story. So what they'd done, they'd basically taken over a room in the back room of their local library, and they had a bank of their, 2 banks of there's like 6 or 8 computers in that same room. And they were sat there, cups of tea, chatting to each other on the forum in the same room. And it was like, that's actually all they wanted. Do you know what I mean? It was absolutely
an excuse to meet.
Brilliant. But it was absolutely brilliant. That's a true story. It's a true story.
That's brilliant.
Is that like kids sitting side by side texting?
Yeah.
But they might be at just each end of the group.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this was like, pre-Facebook and stuff. But and I think that obviously that was the beginning, and obviously it must have. Sure, it develops.
But you've got to start where people are and let them do what they want to do for a while, and then you can move on.
But also they wanted to have a go. Why should they change? They wanted to have a go at technology, but they knew they liked doing what they liked doing. They liked having some tea and biscuits and having a chat. They wanted to do some technology at the same time. Brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have you are any of the people in your groups wanting to do gaming? I'm just interested because I've seen more development of that, and you tend to think of younger people doing gaming, although I saw an ad on television last night for like the Wii, or there was some program on or something like that. The Wii have people have used Wiis at home very, very successfully. Gaming, are there any gamers amongst your users?
Not specifically, and I would love to find a resource of. So a lot of the people I speak to, a lot of games are very can appear very childlike. Okay, and I think that puts people off if it isn't, they can't directly relate to it. Whereas things like chess, patience and stuff, where you can kind of relate to stuff, I find that works. And I find, various versions of solitaire I find really great for adults who are learning difficulties, because it acts as a device to settle the mind before you're going to do your one-to-one or your class. So they'll play a bit of patience for maybe 10-15 minutes and get into the, this is now what I'm doing kind of frame of mind. What I would say, there was a great game that I used I used to use for people that were practicing mouse skills, and it was called Draw a Stickman. And there's 2 chapters before you have to start paying for it. And the idea is that, there's a little, you go on a little like fighting fantasy adventure. You kind of start off drawing a man or a person, and you have to give that person legs and arms and a face. And then once you've been able to do that, very simply, it then can animate and moves. And then it goes to the next. Then you kind of go. You have to draw a sword. You have to draw, draw a key, and then that person then goes and does various things. But it's very cleverly done because you're in control of the graphics.
Is that it?
That's it. Yes. If you go to episode 1,
right. Oh, well, open.
So for Hope Radio listeners, it's called
good
Draw a
radio.
Stickman.
No. I'm not sure. This is what you should never do, which is opening a site at random during a live program. I'm not sure this is going to work.
Well, it's turning over. Maybe that wasn't what you wanted.
Maybe I clicked on it. Anyway, carry on. Chat among yourselves.
Yeah, and actually, we just found that to be. That's quite fun. But so I would say where I've done more work is less with games, but more with things like memory exercises. So I guess there's a game element to that. But I think that I think my gut instinct would be to do games by stealth, not to call it a game.
I think I clicked on the Google Ads button previously. So there we are.
Yeah, no, that's
episode 1.
So if you draw a head,
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, simple as that. And I press done.
There you go. And now I can go on my adventures.
Yeah.
That's really good. Well, we'll not spoil too much more of that.
Yeah.
Tried out, but no, I might come back. I'll leave that one open, I think, for later.
Yeah.
But I mean, where I have actually done some kind of observations actually is when we were doing kind of mouse skills and stuff, just asking people to do things like drawing squares, trying to draw circles, and kind of doing it clockwise and anti-clockwise, and just seeing the difference for people. And I found if that's the introductory level that you're at, you can spend quite a lot, and actually you realize that we all can benefit from brushing up on these types of skills.
Did you see me trying to draw a head there? It wasn't very fluent, was it?
Yeah. So this is and I think that's the thing as well. It's a kind of a continual you realize that there's so much with kind of eye-hand coordination, motor neuron kind of just keeping everything stuff ticking over. So I mean, I've done some one-to-ones with stroke survivors and stuff like that, and just trying to see where we can kind of help. And there are areas that long-term definitely would like to look at in more detail.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was just going to ask you.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Yes, Caspar, I was just going to ask you, because we're kind of in the last 5 minutes of the show now, what your plans are for the next period, and what you see happening.
Well, I think so. Well, I guess more of the same, really. So, I mean, what I want to do is, I think the digital awareness class is proven that, I mean, that's proven to work. So we're going to continue that. The idea is that's going to remain a virtual class, which is kind of, not what I expected. Pleasantly so. I think it's for me, it's about now shorter courses, but tackling very specific, practical things. So for example, the laptop self-care thing will probably be like 6 or 8 sessions or something. So something that isn't going to take over, but it's something that's very practical, that you will learn something about your own laptop. And I think it's all about, just trying to build that kind of confidence. Longer term, I mean, I'm just looking to really develop the tech support. I'd like to have it. I'd like it to be a service. I'd like, referring partners to be able to, get some reporting out of it, to be able to, demonstrate, and act as some kind of, extension to people like the Age UKs or the Link Ages and the MinCaps and all of these organisations, just to try to, just be an extension of what they're doing. It's fairly ambitious. But I think really as well, for me, it's also about building a social enterprise. So part of that is the opportunities of the people that are working with it to kind of, give people a kind of a contribution within a small company to, kind of help them, kind of craft the way it can go. This isn't my thing. Do you know what I mean? It's very much community orientated in that respect.
When you start to think about it in that way, it's clear that this is not, this is not a once and for all activity. This sort of support is and training or awareness or whatever. It's an ongoing need, because as everything changes, a whole set of new things need to be introduced to people.
Absolutely.
And not everybody, with the best will in the world, even if they've grown up with it, not everybody has the confidence to try all the things that they're going to do.
It's very much engaging and addressing the kind of the very pointy, lower tech end of the scale, which is very much needed. I mean, you can have all these YouTube videos, but you can't replace, I think, the kind of one-to-one demonstration of the kind of things that you're doing, Caspar. Finding, like I said at the beginning, find the on button on your device. And that's helpful. The settings thing, that all sounds really, really useful to me. So if people want to contact you, Caspar, or get in touch with you, where's the best place to find you socially?
So I mean, the website is clearcommunityweb.co.uk. My email is caspar@clearcommunityweb.co.uk. Instagram and Facebook, it's @clearcommunityweb, and Twitter is @clearcommunity. Come and say hi.
Yeah, I think
it's fascinating conversation, Caspar. Thank you very much.
Okay, brilliant.
Fabulous to have you. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
See you again. Okay.
And I think we're running out of time, Pauline. So without further ado, we should say cheerio.
I think we'll just say cheerio to all our listeners on Dr. Tech and Hope Radio in South Birmingham. Thanks very much.
Okay.
Bye.